And welcome to World Talks here on TVP World. I'm Diana Sky. Italy is heading into a crucial referendum that could have major political consequences for Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni. Voters are being asked to decide on controversial judicial reforms, but analysts are saying that the vote is also becoming a broader test of support for her government. Joining me now in the studio is Giuseppe Adamo, international affairs expert at the Institute of New Europe. Giuseppe, so glad to have you here on this Sunday morning in our studios. So, Giuseppe, Italians are heading to the poll to decide essentially the future of their justice system. What can we expect? What's at stake? And particularly, most importantly, what are the polls saying so far?
First of all, good morning. It's glad to be here again. Italy didn't have a referendum since a while. The last constitutional referendum dates back to 2016. The polls are saying that this constitutional reform is completely dividing the Italian population. All the polls are saying that it's too close to call, and there is a net division of 50 to 50%.
So what does that mean? Like, what kind of scenarios can we expect?
The scenario saying that it depends on the participation. If the participation is above 48 to 50%, the yes is advantage. If the participation is going to be low, there is a slight advantage of the no. So it's really too close to call. Every poll I've been seeing 51 to 49, 49 to 51. So we're going to see on Monday what's actually going to happen.
So Giuseppe, in the case that the yes camp wins, like you just said, if it's a yes or a no, but say the yes camp wins, right? How much stronger do you think that's going to make Giorgia Meloni ahead of the next general election?
It's gonna give an absolute huge boost to her political side for the simple reasons that most of the constitutional reforms brought by other governments in the last 15 years had been failing. The last one who was successfully voted dates back to the early 2000s, if not late 90s, if I well remember. So to reform the justice system is something that was tried by the right-wing side since more than 20 years. Areas have been not be implemented, so it's going to be something completely new and huge, boosting really high the moral of her political side.
Mm-hmm. All right, tell me a little bit more into specifics about these reforms. So what are we looking at?
So we are talking about a constitutional change based on the justice system. The main aim of the reform is to completely separate the careers path between a judge and a prosecutor. Right now, a magistrate goes into a unique school, a unique office. Now the separation is merely of functions and not of careers. This means that a judge, if changed region, could become a prosecutor, and a prosecutor could become a judge. And this has been seen as not full implementation of the division of powers and the rule of law. But moreover, it's not only this change. The government would like to implement a change on the self-governing bodies. So first, to separate as well the self-governing bodies of the judge and of the prosecutors, which right now is only one that self-govern both, and want to change the way the self-governing bodies are elected. Now they are elected both by the parliament and by the judge and prosecutor. The government would like to change it into random draw between a poll of magistrate. Yeah. Random draw, both.
Random draw.
Yeah. And the third change is going to be about the disciplinary actions toward judge. This is the most controversial. She would like to take away the disciplinary action from the
Right, we're talking about Meloni.
Yes, the government would like to take away the disciplinary action from the self-governing body to a new high court that we don't know yet how it's going to be composed, because the implementation of the constitutional reform then will be implemented by the ordinary law that we don't know yet, because the argument behind that is that if you elect your own disciplinary guardian, it couldn't be impartial, because there could be an exchange of votes, And also the second argument behind that is that right now the self-governing bodies are internally divided politically, in the sense that there are some organizations of judges who lean more left-wing and some who lean more right-wing. And if we random draw the people who's going to be inside that, they could not organize each other before to be politically decided, so we don't know before who's going to be there. So these are the main arguments that sustain this constitutional change. There are some more that are rather against it, who saying this is an attempt to bring, this is a first step to separate the division, to separate the functions, to separate the careers, and then bring the prosecutors toward the executive power. There is a huge debate among scholars, among judges, among professors. The discussion has been really heated in the last few months, and of course this is going to be rather, many Italians are voting if it's pro or against the government, but many sides are trying to politicize this discussion. But anyway, is a reform, is a really important reform. We're going to see on Monday how this is going to turn out.
And from everything that you've said, Giuseppe, what factors do you think could actually ultimately decide the outcome, turnout? Do you think it would be party loyalty or the broader political mood in Italy right now?
We are talking about a massive election that involves millions of people. It's obvious that the political mood has an influence about it, especially that the discussion around this referendum has been really politicized. It has been, of course, as always happened, moved into a vote for or against Meloni, despite she many times has said, I won't resign from my office if I lose the referendum, something that has been done by a few years ago her predecessor, Matteo Renzi, who said...
How do Italians view that? I mean, she's saying, hey, I'm not going to resign.
She said, I'm not going to resign if I lose the referendum. And she said, she went to a podcast and said, if you vote against the referendum to vote against me, not only you're going to have a non-functioning justice, but you keep having Giorgia Meloni in power. She's obviously say that because she's doing that because in 2016 it was the previous constitutional referendum. It was a total different topic. It was about changing the Senate and change from a perfect bicameral system to an imperfect bicameral system between Senate and the Common of Deputies. And the Prime Minister Matteo Renzi back then said, if I lose the referendum, I'm going to resign, and he did. So she's smart on not trying to do the same mistakes. Everyone said that was a mistake, that ended Renzi's political career at the high stakes. So now she's really staying away from trying to personalize the referendum. And
how damaging could a no victory be for her government?
It would definitely be a huge moral boost for the opposition. Now the opposition is to some degree divided because we have this Democratic Party, which is kind of social democrat, and then we have the Five-Star Movement, which is a kind of populist left-wing party. And yes, they are trying in many regions to run together, but there are differences of opinions. Moreover, the number of political parties who are opted for the yes are more than who are for the no, because there are many centrist parties, like led by Carlo Calenda and others, who are not part of the government, but anyway had campaigned for yes, because they say, wait, but 10, 15 years ago, the division of careers was also in the Democratic Party program. Why now you are campaigning against no? And there is a huge debate about that, because there were few former representatives of the left who anyway say, no, I disagree with the political line, I will go for yes, because I think this is a battle that is not political, and so on. So this kind of discussions and debates have been going on for months. The polls say it's 50-50. Let's see what happens on Monday. But for sure, a defeat in the referendum will have consequence on the government, despite will not lead to the resignation. But I think we will have consequence on the polls and on the next election that's going to be in 2027.
And these consequences, for instance, what kind of consequences mainly are we looking at in terms of everyday life? How is this going to affect ordinary Italians?
It's not going to affect ordinary Italians in terms of jobs or daily life, but it's going to affect the government support in the next election in 2027. I think is gonna, because it's actually pretty soon, it's 1.5 years. So
in December 2027.
Yes. So I think she's gonna lose support if she loses the referendum, despite she's not gonna resign, because many Italians will think, well, she doesn't have enough support to bring the reforms down, to enact the change she has promised. So there's for sure a huge risk of losing few points in the next election, at least in the polls. There's still time, there's like 1.5 years, but still it's going to have some kind of impact on many voters who may not sure about what to vote in 2027.
Let me ask you this. Most likely, of course, we have external pressures, right? That Italy probably may also be seeing energy prices, international conflicts. Now we have a new war that erupted, almost a month ago, the one in the Middle East. Concerns about, of course, Italy's economy. How do you think, to what extent those issues are actually going to influence how people are going to be voting?
Absolutely, yes. If, for example, we have a problem with gasoline price that have been doubling in the last few weeks due to the escalation in the Middle East. And the government have been really smart to try to prevent these problems, because they know that if Italians gonna have a really huge expense in their pockets, that's gonna influence how they're gonna vote in the referendum. They see that a failed to action towards everyday problem is a consequence of the government action, so they're gonna be disappointed, and that disappointment is gonna turn into a no in the referendum. So the government have been acting really wisely, more, let's say even faster than normal regarding gasoline price, and staying away to be too much escalated into conflicts which are not popular right now in Italy. Italians are usually really skeptical regarding military intervention, whatever it is. So we have been witnessing a really moderate attitude toward what happens in Iran from the government, and a really kind of faster than normal action toward gasoline price. And many commentators, many people say this is to avoid then that this disappointment is this problem is gonna then affect the referendum results.
Thank you so much, Giuseppe Adamo, international affairs expert at the Institute of New Europe. And just really quickly, to my understanding, the booths also, voter booths, they open all the way through until 3 p.m. tomorrow.
Exactly.
Correct. And thank you so much for watching this edition of World Talks here on TVP World. I'm Diana Skye. I'll see you next time.